A gruesome murder in Charlotte puts the spotlight back on soft-on-crime policies plaguing blue cities as Trump puts Chicago on notice.
We're not going to war. We're going to clean up our cities. We're going to clean them up so they don't kill 5 people every weekend. That's not war. That's common sense.
We break down the latest in the law and order battle.
I'm Daily Wire Executive Editor John Bickley with Georgia Howe. It's Monday, September 8th. This is Morning Wire.
President Trump declares an end to anti-Christian bias after a new DOJ report finds the Biden administration targeted believers.
As President Trump has stated, the Biden administration engaged in an egregious pattern of targeting peaceful Christians while ignoring violent anti-Christian offenses.
And early voting kicks off next week for crucial elections in several states. We walk through the races to watch.
Thanks for waking up with Morning Wire. Stay tuned. We have the news you need to know.
It's an interesting time for business, with tariff and trade policies shifting constantly, supply chains feeling the squeeze, and cash flows tighter than ever. If your business can't adapt in real time to these rapidly changing conditions, you're going to find yourself in a world of hurt. NetSuite by Oracle gives you the total visibility you need across everything from global shipments and tariff impacts to real-time cash flow through their AI-powered business management suite that's already trusted by over 42,000 businesses. As the #1 AI cloud ERP, NetSuite brings together accounting, financial management, inventory, and HR into one unified platform, creating a single source of truth that gives you the visibility and control to make quick decisions. NetSuite helps you instantly identify what's stuck in your operations, understand exactly what it's costing you, and figure out how to pivot fast when you need to make changes. It's one system, full control. Tame the chaos with NetSuite. If your revenues are at least in the 7 figures, download the free ebook, Navigating Global Trade, 3 Insights for Leaders at netsuite.com/morningwire. Again, that's netsuite.com/morningwire.
The Trump administration has ratcheted up its law and order efforts, both with an unprecedented immigration raid and plans to clean up crime-ridden Democrat-run cities.
Here are the details. It's Daily Wire reporter Amanda Presta-Giacomo. Hey, Amanda. So lots to get to on the law and order front here, but let's start with this massive immigration raid out of Georgia. Hundreds of people were detained. What do we know about this raid?
Yeah, this took place outside of Savannah at a Hyundai manufacturing plant on Thursday. In total, there were 475 arrests, and most of them were reportedly Korean. This was the culmination of weeks of intelligence gathering and coordination between federal authorities and state agencies, and there were some 500 officers taking part in this enforcement effort. The administration has since reportedly worked out a deal with South Korea to have hundreds of the detainees released. Details of the raid uncovered by CNN say that authorities were able to talk to each worker one at a time, and they cleared some of them once they were able to confirm that they were in the U.S. legally. They were then allowed to leave, of course. Hyundai has said that none of the illegals were directly employed by the company. Now, this is considered one of the largest raids in U.S. history, and in fact, it is the largest single-site enforcement action in the history of Homeland Security investigations.
Wow. And this adds to the growing number of deportations or detainments from the administration. Now, continuing on this law and order beat, there was a really disturbing murder out of Charlotte last month. Video of it's just been released, and it's, again, sparking a lot of conversation about crime policies in general. What do we know about that case?
Yeah, a real tragedy that's putting another spotlight on soft-on-crime policies. You know, this happened in Charlotte, which is another Democrat-run city. The victim, a 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee named Irina Zarutska, she boarded a rail train after working a shift at a pizzeria, and she was brutally stabbed to death by the man sitting behind her in what looks like a completely unprovoked attack. The suspect is a 34-year-old homeless man named DeCarlos Brown Jr. He has a very lengthy rap sheet, including convictions for robbery with a dangerous weapon, breaking and entering, and felony larceny. Now, despite concerns about his mental stability, Brown was released from jail without bond earlier this year. A judge ordered a mental evaluation in July, but that was never conducted, and Brown was allowed to remain free. As you mentioned, John, this sparked a lot of talk about how cities and states across the nation are addressing crime and mental health issues.
And Trump, along with immigration, has, of course, focused in on these soft-on-crime policy cities like we see in Charlotte. This weekend, he really amped up talk about Chicago specifically. That sparked, again, controversy. What did he say?
Yeah, Trump posted a meme spoofing the film Apocalypse Now. The meme said, "Shypocalypse Now," and Trump captioned that post, I love the smell of deportations in the morning. And he added that Chicago is about to find out why it's called the Department of War. That's a reference to Trump rebranding the Department of Defense as the Department of War. This message piggybacks off of what Trump said even more explicitly last week. Here's the president's.
We're going in. I didn't say when we're going in. I have an obligation when 20 people are killed over the last 2.5 weeks and 75 are shot with bullets.
Chicago is obviously one of the most dangerous cities in the nation. Last year, the city recorded 573 murders. Now, unsurprisingly, Democrats were outraged by the president's shypocalypse post. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, for example, he said that Trump was threatening to go to war with an American city, and he called Trump a wannabe dictator. Meanwhile, though, in GOP-led states where some of these high-crime blue cities are, they're welcoming Trump to bring in the National Guard and help make these cities safe.
Well, it's certainly a polarizing issue, at least for the political class. Amanda, thanks so much for reporting.
You're welcome.
Fall is planting season. Did you know that many plants and trees actually do better when they're planted this time of year? But you have to know where to start. That's why I love fastgrowingtrees.com. It doesn't matter if you live in the sunny south or if the air is getting chilly where you are, their plant experts can help you find the perfect fit for your space. Fast Growing Trees has everything for your dream yard: fruit trees, privacy trees, shrubs, and more, all delivered to your door in days. Their locally grown U.S. plants come with an Alive and Thrive guarantee, ensuring they arrive healthy and will thrive in your yard. And best of all, no green thumb is required. Fast Growing Trees plant experts are available to help with everything from soil type and landscape design to plant care advice, so your selections can thrive. This fall, they have the best deals for your yard, up to half off on select plants and other deals. And listeners to our show get 15% off their first purchase when using code WIRE at checkout. That's 15% off at fastgrowingtrees.com using code WIRE at checkout. Now is the perfect time to plant. Use code WIRE to save today. Offer is valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions may apply. Check out the link below or in the show notes and support the show.
A new report from the Department of Justice alleges widespread anti-Christian bias within the federal government during the Biden administration.
Here with the details is Daily Wire culture reporter Megan Basham. So, Megan, what does this DOJ task force report actually claim about the anti-Christian bias that happened in the past administration?
So, Attorney General Pam Bondi established this task force back in April to investigate alleged anti-Christian bias. And they said that the Biden administration engaged in a consistent and systematic pattern of discrimination, I'm quoting there, against Christians across multiple agencies. So this was what Bondi said back in April when that task force was first initiated.
The Department of Justice will protect religious liberty for Christians and for all Americans. We'll work closely with everyone around this table and take a whole of government approach to solving this problem, and ultimately protect Americans' First Amendment rights. Protecting Christians from bias is not favoritism. It's upholding the rule of law and fulfilling the constitutional promise.
So those are some pretty broad strokes, but what specific evidence did she find to substantiate this?
Well, it was quite a litany across various agencies, so I kind of want to walk you through each one here. So at the Department of Defense, Equal Opportunity Commission, and Department of Labor, the report found that they denied requests for religious exemptions for COVID vaccine mandates to specifically Christian service members and employees. Then we move on to the Department of Education. Now, it imposed record-breaking fines against 2 Christian universities, Liberty University and Grand Canyon University. We move on to the Department of Homeland Security. Their Customs and Border Protection allegedly omitted Christian perspectives from directives for how to handle detainees, but at the same time, they did allow accommodations for Islam, Rastafarianism, and Judaism. And then we move on to the Justice Department and the FBI. This one has gotten a lot of attention. Around 24 individuals were arrested under the FACE Act for protesting or praying out in front of abortion clinics. And at the same time, they detail an FBI memo that categorized Catholics as radical traditionalists and potential domestic terrorism threats. At the State Department, the report alleges that humanitarian assistance was denied to Christian communities, or they were only offered limited assistance. In the meantime, though, non-Christians were favored and they were given provisions for things like their holidays, where Christian holidays were not recognized. The memo also alleges that the State Department officials imposed, quoting here, radical LGBTQ gender ideology on foreign governments and state employees, including the use of preferred pronouns and rainbow flags, even though those things fell afoul of Christian conscience rights. So the task force says that it's going to continue its work and it will issue another final report in February next year.
So some serious allegations. Has anyone from the Biden administration responded to this or tried to explain it?
No, they haven't. So far, there's been a lot of no comments out there, but we are hearing from some critics in the media. The AP, for instance, ran a story quoting various law professors who are saying that because Christians make up nearly 2/3 of the U.S. population, that they're really not at threat of being discriminated against, and this task force is unnecessary. They basically say that Trump is just pandering to his base here. And one particular law professor, Bruce Ledowitz, says that Christians are erroneously claiming victimhood status.
Well, it doesn't really matter how big the group is. What matters is if the claims are true and if they were held to a different standard than other groups. Megan, thanks for reporting.
Yep, my pleasure.
With fall nearly upon us, Election Day is fast approaching, where a number of closely watched races will give important insights ahead of the midterms.
Daily Wire's senior editor, Cabot Phillips, is here to break down the biggest races. Hey, Cabot, I know you've been counting down till the next elections ever since last November. In fact, you might even say that's a problem you have. So where should we start here?
Yeah, the start of fall for most people means football season. But for us political nerds, it means election season. The nationwide midterms aren't until 2026, but there are still some huge races this November. And early voting kicks off next week in some of them. So let's start in Virginia, where the GOP is looking to hold on to the governor's mansion. Remember, back in 2021, Republican Glenn Youngkin scored a stunning upset, but this time it looks like Democrats have the edge. Their candidate, former Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger, is leading Republican Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl-Sears by about 6 points in the polls, though Sears has made it a little closer lately. Now, this race will be really interesting because it should give us an idea of how voters in a purple or more light blue state like Virginia feel about Trump's performance so far. And the Democrats appear very confident that voters in Virginia are not pleased with Trump. You can tell from their messaging. Nearly all of their ads against Sears so far have focused on her support of Trump. Have a listen to their latest ad, for example.
MAGA Republican Winsome Earl-Sears, in lockstep with Trump.
Trump will do that.
Winsome Earl-Sears, so far right, she's wrong for Virginia.
Now, another interesting aspect of this race is that Sears is looking to become the first female Black governor in American history. Now, her supporters say that that aspect is being ignored by the legacy media because she's a Republican. They point to the largely fawning media coverage given to Democrat Stacey Abrams in Georgia a few years back as proof of that bias.
Right, that was hard to miss. Now, the other big governor's race is in New Jersey. Where do things stand now with that contest?
Yeah, so most folks hear New Jersey and assume the race would be dominated by Democrats. After all, they've gone blue in every presidential race since 1988. And as recently as 2020, Joe Biden carried the state by 16 points. But in November, Trump really turned heads by getting within 6 points of Kamala Harris. That sparked a wave of optimism for Republicans. Polls show Democrat nominee Mikey Sherrill ahead of Republican Jack Ciattarelli by about 7 points. But there are reasons to believe that it'll be much closer than that come November. First, Republicans have matched Democrat fundraising dollar for dollar. That implies real enthusiasm from both the state and national party. And second, the outgoing Democrat Governor Phil Murphy is increasingly unpopular in the state. A poll from earlier this year, for example, showed that Murphy actually had a lower approval rating in New Jersey than Donald Trump. So the anti-Trump playbook might not work as well there. To that point, Ciattarelli has not shied away from his support of Donald Trump. He promised to implement his agenda, especially on immigration, in New Jersey. So he is not running away from it.
That would certainly be an upset if he pulled that off. So let's shift to the race getting perhaps the most attention. That's the mayoral contest in New York that we've been tracking very closely. What's the latest there?
Yeah, Democrat nominee Zohran Mamdani, an avowed socialist, is dominating the headlines, and for good reason. This race should tell us a lot about whether the far-left, more socialist wing of the Democratic Party can win over enough moderate Democrats to swing a large election like the one in New York. Remember, fewer than 1/3 of the city's registered voters actually turned out for the primary this summer when Mamdani won, so it remains to be seen just how high his ceiling actually is. Now, at the moment, he is clearly benefiting from the crowded field on the ballot right now, with former Governor Andrew Cuomo, Republican Curtis Sliwa, and incumbent Eric Adams all pulling in around 10 to 20% in the polls. And that is making it very hard for any one candidate to coalesce the anti-Mamdani, anti-socialist vote. But the White House could be trying to make that easier by clearing the field themselves. According to numerous reports, they've now privately discussed offering jobs in the administration to both Adams and Sliwa to hopefully get them to drop out. That would turn the race into a one-on-one showdown between Mamdani and Cuomo, and in their view, make it a much more competitive election.
An important race with a lot of implications. Kevin, thanks so much for reporting.
Absolutely.
Thanks for waking up with us. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. We'll be back later this evening with more news you need to know.